of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Sienna.
Councilmember Johnson?
Here.
Councilmember Stanfield?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent?
Here.
Mayor Long?
Here. We have a proclamation tonight that is, hopefully I won't cry when I read it. Dean really wanted to be here for this, and he had a medical appointment that he could not change out of the area, so he sends his regards, and he would have been the one to read this for you tonight, but he is not able to do so. So it's kind of long. If you guys are able to stand, if all of you would stand while I read this. If you can't, that's fine too. This is a proclamation for National Vietnam War Veterans Day, March 29th, 2020. Whereas on March 28th, 2017, President Donald Trump signed into law the Vietnam War Veterans Recognition Act of 2017, designating every March 29th as National Vietnam War Veterans Day. And whereas National Vietnam War Veterans Day is recognized with 6 other military-centric national holidays codified in Title IV of the United States Code, including Armed Forces Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, National Korean War Veterans Armistice Day, Navy Day, and Veterans Day. And whereas on August 2nd, 1964, North Vietnamese torpedo boats attacked the Navy destroyer USS Maddox, and President Lyndon Johnson presented the Tonkin Gulf Resolution to Congress, which voted overwhelmingly in favor on August 7th to take all necessary measures to repel any armed attack against the United States and to prevent further aggression. And whereas we observe the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War with solemn reverence upon the valor of a generation that served with honor, and we pay tribute to the more than 3 million service members who left their families to serve bravely a world away from everything they knew and everyone they loved. And whereas the Department of Veterans Affairs estimates that today there are 6.4 million living Vietnam veterans and 9 million families of those who served during this time frame. And whereas it was chosen to be celebrated in perpetuity as March 29, 1973 was the day the Military Assistance Command Vietnam was deactivated, and whereas the USA Vietnam War Commemoration honors all United States veterans who served in active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces from November 1st, 1955 to May 15, 1975, regardless of location. And whereas our loyal service members pushed through unknown jungles, rice paddies, punishing heat, and monsoons, fighting heroically to protect the ideals we hold dear as Americans. And whereas we draw inspiration from the heroes who suffered unspeakably as prisoners of war, yet who returned home with their heads held high, and we pledge to keep faith with those who are wounded and still carry the scars of war, seen and unseen. And with more than 1,600 of our service members still among the missing, we pledge as a nation to do everything in our power to bring these patriots home. And whereas through more than a decade of combat over air, land, and sea, our proud service members upheld the highest traditions of our armed forces, and as a grateful nation, we honor the more than 58,220 patriots, their names etched forever in black granite at the Vietnam War Memorial, who sacrificed all they had and all they would ever know. And whereas in the reflection of the wall, we see the families and veterans who carry a pain that may never fade, and that they may find peace in knowing their loved ones endure not only in medals and memories, but in the hearts of all Americans who are forever grateful for their service, valor, and sacrifice. And whereas while no words will ever be fully worthy of their service, nor any honor truly befitting their sacrifice, let us remember that it's never too late to pay tribute to the men and women who answered the call of duty with courage and valor. Let us renew our commitment to the fullest possible accounting for those who have not returned. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Sue Long, as Mayor of the City of Fortuna, proclaim March 29, 2020 as National Vietnam War Veterans Day to recognize a chapter in our nation's history that must never be forgotten, and to renew our commitment to the veterans who answered our country's call to serve in Vietnam, and to family members who also sacrificed in our homeland. And we call upon all governing bodies, businesses, schools, and organizations to honor our Vietnam veterans and our fallen, our wounded, those unaccounted for, our former prisoners of war, their families, and all who served with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. So who's going to accept this? All of you?
distinguished council members, Fortuna citizens. My name is Gene Lombardo. I served with the United States Army, the Corps of Engineers, during Vietnam, 67, 68. I have a family of Vietnam veterans behind me that I would like for each one of them to stand up and introduce themselves and their rank and their service. One at a time. Bill?
Hi, I'm Bob Terry, Chief, United States Navy. I served 69 to 91, retired, and did my 2 tours in Nam, and I'm still here.
Bill Humboldt, I served from 62 to 66. I was in on the ships all the time when I was going to Vietnam.
Robert Wright, same class as James May, and I got over in Vietnam in 68, got out of the service, and I think we were I was in the United States Army. 1 year in Vietnam.
We have one more veteran in here that is not a Vietnam veteran, but I would like him to stand up and introduce himself and tell us where he served.
Martin Morris, I was a senior airman from 2002 to 2006. My war location is Afghanistan.
This proclamation is more than 4 corners to us Vietnam veterans. This proclamation is something that goes deep into our hearts. It was many long years coming that the Vietnam veteran was not favorably looked upon. Attitudes have changed. This is a symbol that the communities like the city of Fortuna, this is a symbol to the Vietnam veteran that we dedicated during the Vietnam War, duty, honor, country. And we thank you for recognizing that. Thank you very much.
I also want to personally thank all of you for your service to our country. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone here from the hospital for the St. Joseph Redwood Memorial one? Okay, we'll just skip that and move on to oral comments from the public. If anyone would like to address the council tonight on anything not on the agenda, you can come up to the podium and you have 3 minutes to tell us whatever you want to tell us.
Katie Garrison, Fortuna. I'm here in my capacity as the food pantry director, St. Joseph's Food Pantry, 2312 Newburgh Road. I'd like everybody to know in this national emergency that the food pantry will be staying open. We're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 until 12. So we are here to service our clients. We do have food for anybody who does need it. Okay?
Thank you, Katie, for letting everyone know that.
Mayor, Council, ladies and gentlemen, my name is James Graham. I got a couple things going on here. First of all, I have a sketch of, where's the camera? How do I show this? It's like this.
There you go.
It's a sketch of Dennis Wendt. And I am going to present it to, I was hoping to present it to Sean Swanson for all he does to keep his memory alive and all the work he's done in Fortuna, but he's not here. So I'm going to leave it here for him to pick up, if that's okay, like I did the one for the chief. It's awesome. It looks just like him. I'm sorry it's not in a frame. I tried to get one, and I would have had to cut it down, and I just didn't want to wreck it. So, somebody I can give it to? He did a lot for this community. People haven't forgotten about him. Also, I've created a flyer for children to be aware of needle litter on the ground. People are finding it all over the place. There was one in front of Subway yesterday. Somebody almost stepped on it with their sandals. It's on Facebook. This is friendly. There's no bashing of anybody. This is strictly to alert children of needle litter. That's it. And I'm writing a book about it, me and the artist. It's going to be a small book, and then I'm going to publish it, and I'm going to donate copies to schools. In the meantime, I've already got these to all the schools around here. I'm getting a little bit of cooperation, not as much as I would like. So if anybody here wants to help me, any council member, anybody here wants to help me get this to where little children can see it, I don't see anything wrong with that. It's not political. It's for children's safety. And other than that, thank you for all you guys do. This is an awesome town, and I hope it stays that way. I don't ever want to see it becoming like Eureka. That's why I go to Eureka City Council meetings. I don't live there. Eureka's just too close to Fortuna for me to ignore the problem. I can't ignore it. And
Thank you.
Another flyer that's for adult content only that I'm not going to mention here. Do you have the orange one?
What's that?
Do you have the orange flyer?
Just this one. I made copies. And
Well, before you leave, I'll give you one. I'm not going to bring it up here, but I'd like the council to see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
You guys can have this as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. In order to move our meeting along a little bit tonight, we are going to move city council business items A and D up to the consent calendar as items 11 and 12, unless anyone has any objections. So by doing that, we have on our consent calendar 12 items, including city council minutes and all of our department monthly reports, administrative, community development, finance, parks and rec, police, public works, River Lodge, and our report of disbursements. Authorize the city manager to execute agreements with California Department of Transportation. Authorize the city manager to award a professional service contract for the City of Fortuna Local Road Safety Plan to GHD and approve a supplemental budget request. And revise Measure E committee bylaws, which is basically just changing a meeting which conflicts with a holiday. So does anyone wish to pull any of those 12 items?
Can we comment on without polling, or? Okay. 2 items in the consent agenda. I was just wondering if there'd be a progress update regarding the denial of the appeal for an abatement, and when that was going to sunset and when we were going to move forward with actions there.
I can provide an update with the city manager's report. But
Great.
30 days it was granted for the timeline has expired, and so
Okay.
far it looks like no action has been taken to remedy the situation on the part of the owner. So we're working through that process to get an abatement order from a judge just to follow that through.
Okay. And the other is in the Parks and Rec monthly report, there was, under the Park and Facilities Maintenance, East High students volunteered to create a gravel walking trail along the east side of the the rodeo grounds, so hikers can walk the perimeter of the park during the rainy season. I thought that was a pretty neat project for them, and maybe they could present, once their project's completed, maybe a recognition for that. Those are the only 2 items I had. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendars, item 1 through 12.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to city business, then our public hearing to consider amendments to the Fortuna Municipal Code Title 17 zoning regulation, adding 17.06.184.5 short-term rentals, and we have an ordinance which was continued from March 2nd meeting.
So our Deputy Director of Community Development, Liz Shorey, has a staff report. We'll be presenting it for that item.
Yeah, Honorable Mayor and council members. So yeah, this was continued from the March 2nd meeting. I gave a full presentation at that time, and then the council had some questions or a couple of things to add to the ordinance. So this is for short-term rentals, which are a type of temporary lodging that are operated out of private residences for less than 30 days. And the proposed ordinance that you received last time is before you now, substantially the same, includes establishment of definitions, standards, occupancy, parking requirements, security measures, signage, trash collection, insurance requirements, permitting, enforcement, fees, and fines. And the purpose of the ordinance is to establish standards so that they can then, be recognized as legitimate businesses, and allow a collection of TOT, but also protecting the neighborhood and establishing health and safety standards, and also supporting tourism and allowing the public to have a source of income if they decide to pursue this. So just to go over the changes from the last time, there were 4 items. One is just a correction on the Good Neighbor flyer to amend the code that it be approved by staff, not prepared by staff. And so I did give you a handout. There was a couple of corrections from the standards that were issued in the packet, and it was just which one was it? Anyway, we'll go over these. So the changes are in bold in that draft ordinance, and so the Good Neighbor flyer, that change was made on item 2J, and also it reappears. So that's in the submittal section, the submittal packet, and that's clarified under the operational standards under F4, more detailed, and that's the actual requirements for the Good Neighbor flyer. The parking has been changed from 2 vehicles per bedroom to 1 per bedroom. And also parking was changed to add demonstration of ample parking by the city manager when considering the waiver. And then the fines. So we did review the fines. You were just wanted more information on the appropriateness of the fines. So the proposed fine, and we didn't make any changes to that, but certainly that's open to you. The proposed fines are $250 per day for the first violation, $500 per day for the second violation, and then $750 per day for the third violation. And so I did look through the code, and Chapter 1 for penalties of violation of the Fortuna Municipal Code are established, and those were created in 1997. So I think they're relatively low, and they hadn't been raised since that time. At that time, it was $100, or in the code now, it's $100 for the first violation, and that's not per day. That's just the one time. Second violation is $200, and the third violation is $500. So within like that 23-year period, the proposed fines are just over double. So from 100 to 250, 200 to 500, and 500 to 750. And then, there's the issue of the per day levying of that fine. And, just thinking about it, that the operator can easily come into compliance, at least by, ceasing operations while they remedy the fine. So it's something that's, I think, is easy to comply with, at least on the short term, while then they're able to correct whatever the violation may be. So I don't think the per day fee necessarily needs to be imposed. You know, they have a quick way out of it while they're remedying whatever that fine may be. But, you know, that's certainly something for the council to consider. And then lastly, the insurance. You were wanted to know about a minimum, just a little bit more information on that. And so $500,000 seems to be a common, the common minimum. And that's for liability, in particular on bodily injury is typically what it is most commonly. And that's it's a particular type of insurance, so it would not be the homeowner's insurance because that would not cover renting the unit to, on a commercial basis. So specifically needs to be short-term or what they call home sharing liability insurance. And that was added to section, well, it's on page 75. Section
E7.
What?
E7.
Oh, thank you. Section E7 on page 75. And it's also referenced in the application submittal checklist, which makes it easier when people are submitting their application. So we have it in the checklist section and then in the more detailed health and safety section, because I noticed in the past sometimes that's complicated when you have a requirement in different parts of the code. You have to kind of have a little bit confusing for the applicant. So I think it's easier to actually have it referenced as a submittal component and then under the appropriate health and safety section. So I think with that, I am done, and we'll turn it over to you for discussion.
Does anyone have any comments or questions?
I have one. On number 4, it says all bedrooms must have means of egress. Does that mean more than the door that goes out to the rest of the house?
That would be reviewed by the fire department.
Okay.
It's windows of a certain size.
Oh, okay.
There's a certain size they have to be to meet the egress.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that it would be, anything in addition to, say, what a hotel has. They just have the door and a window. Sometimes they don't even have the window.
Okay, thank you.
So this is subject to the business license annual licensing fee, and does it also make them a home-based business for FBID needs?
It would not fall under the home occupation.
Okay. So would it be an FBID assessment?
That's a good question because it would not be in any of the commercial districts. That's not something that we had considered.
Okay.
But it would, if this is adopted without adding that in, then it would not be under FBID.
Okay.
So I still have a concern with the parking. It's basically, people have a driveway, and maybe it's a 2-car driveway. And if you have a 3-bedroom rental, that's 3 off-street parkings, and that just it still seems like too much. No one's going to qualify.
I think where we left it last time, this might be more specific, but I think it was going to be more vague that the applicant shall demonstrate there's adequate parking on site, and doesn't specify amount per bedroom. So that was when we talked about, there was some discussion whether we leave it more vague or if we make it more specific like this.
So I think we just need to expand on B and take A out.
It says on our iPad, on number 3, it says parking added, demonstrate of ample parking.
Yeah, that's really the change.
So will it be
Oh.
put in there and not 1 off-street parking per bedroom?
What, was that removed that wasn't removed at the last meeting? Was that something that you had asked?
We had quite a discussion on parking.
Can we just strike off-street?
I think if we just put on ample parking.
Oh, okay, then maybe I misunderstood you at the last meeting. I didn't know that was the
Under the,
goal.
under the city manager's waiver, it brings up such cases may include size of the parcel, street frontage, or shared parking agreement, because most have pretty good parcel frontage on the street.
I thought we left it pretty vague. It's just that in the application, when they had show their sketch and all that, they would just have to show that there's ample parking.
Okay. So delete 2A.
And maybe reword B a little bit, because we're not going to approve a waiver, we're just going to approve ample parking.
Okay, so the parking will be as determined by the city manager, that there is ample parking.
There you go.
I mean, I don't have a problem with one parking space per bedroom, but
Off-street.
strike
though?
off-street.
Yeah, there you go.
That's I would just leave everything the way it is and strike off-street.
So if you have a 4-bedroom house, though,
Then you can provide ample parking with demonstration to the city manager. But it's 2 in the driveway
you
and,
have a 4-bedroom rental, short-term rental, you're not going to have 4 vehicles show up there for that rental. That just doesn't, that's just not the way they work typically.
I think ample's too open to interpretation, and one person's gonna say, you did it for them and not for me, and I think if you just had that baseline, then you could protect your city manager and then let him make his discretionary decision after that.
My house is the 3-bedroom house, but it has a single car driveway.
Because it has a single-car garage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not every house is going to have, it may have frontage parking, like I have enough space in front for 2 more vehicles, but you're not going to have off-street parking for 3 vehicles.
No, that's why I want to strike off-street. But I'm not gonna die on that sword, so let me know what you want.
I like the idea of having a target, and if you pull off the off-street and you have, I guess I do like Councilmember Stanfield's suggestion, one off-street parking space shall be provided for each bedroom, and then, if there's street parking, then that would be deemed suitable, and then having a mechanism to approve it so it's not guaranteed. It does take a little bit of the guesswork out of it, and it seems like most conditions would fit by moving that, except where you have, maybe a long street with a 4-bedroom house, and there could be a waiver of that.
So you're in agreement to say 1 parking space and not off-street?
Yes.
Take out the off-street?
Yeah, I think I'm supportive of that recommendation by Councilmember Stanfield. Again, up to the council, but that seems like
Are the
a
rest-
target to shoot at, and then there's a mechanism for a waiver if there's a situation where you have more bedrooms and there's more on-street parking, say, for example.
Well, and if the homeowner, the owner of the property knows that they can only provide 3 spaces, that can be part of their house rules, is that if you're renting this home, you can't have more than 3 vehicles show up. That's just the way it is.
Right. Tough to
city-
support, but then again, you'd have the waiver so you could demonstrate that there's ample
I'm
parking.
saying, but if it's a tight spot, if it's a cul-de-sac and there's no other parking or whatever it may be, it's up to the homeowner to prove that there's enough parking, and if they only have 2 spots, they need to put that in their house rules that say it can only accommodate 2 vehicles.
And that would be another reason to grant them a waiver if they had that situation.
So,
It could be part of the good neighbor flyer.
because you
That
have
I've
the
rented, they put the
rules.
rules up front
Exactly.
before you even rent it.
And they tell you how many parking places are available. 90% of the time, they tell you how many cars you can have. So, I do Airbnb a lot, in case you haven't noticed. Every time I travel, I pretty much do Airbnb. I've read lots of house rules. So I'm still struggling a little bit with the insurance. With every business license that the city has in town, we don't ask them to prove that they have insurance, do we?
No.
So what makes us different? They're not going to sue the city. It's up to them to take care of their business. So why, I still don't understand why we have this in here.
I mean, the purpose is just to consider protection of the occupants, so the renters.
And I understand that, but we don't do that for all of the
Yeah.
other businesses.
No, we don't.
So does anyone care? It's just weird to me. I mean, I'm not, like Jeremy said, gonna die on the sword, is that what you said? But it just seems like we don't require that from every business that comes in for a business license.
I don't think it's something we need to have in here.
I'm wondering if the, like, HomeAway or Airbnb requires
They do not.
They,
you have a suggested amount of insurance.
and they offer it.
Airbnb
They make it
offers
available.
I don't- Does HomeAway too?
I'm not sure. I know
I
Airbnb.
know Airbnb
does.
does.
Yeah, I'm not willing to die on that either, or I'm not interested in to die on that sword, so if that's what the council,
Started a trend, Jeremy.
I see you struck it for annual, updated certificate of insurance, which was the big one for me. So whether or not you want to chase down that particular document in the application process, I don't care. If you feel like it's necessary, I'm not going to prevent it. But I do like that it's strucken from item 6 on page 74.
yeah, that was just to clean up the code. It's still in 7. It's under E7.
Right, but that's not an annual renewal notice. That's just during the application process, they have to prove they have insurance.
Right. Yes.
What does anybody think?
I think that most renters are going to, or most of the hosts are going to have insurance in addition to their homeowners insurance. I mean, that's just the smart thing to do. So I think in most cases that there would be insurance.
I mean, I appreciate in the application process, it might be something that somebody didn't think of. And so it kind of makes them make that phone call, and then it's up to them to maintain that insurance. So I'm not opposed to having it in there as kind of a little memory jog for them to protect themselves. But I don't think it's our responsibility to make sure they maintain it once they've been notified that it's important to have.
Right, and we already took that out.
Now, that's under the application process 2F, but then we took it out on number 6, so that's where I'm saying I'm fine with it the way it is.
And it's still under there, under E7?
But that's not an annual,
Right, just saying they have to have it. Before we had it in there that they were gonna have, send the city
An
certificates
updated
every
renew-
year, like
yeah.
the contractors and
and I
everything
don't
else does.
feel like I need that. That's up to them to be
You have to
responsible.
track it, the city has to track it.
I don't want to.
Exactly.
I don't want staff to.
Okay. Any other thought down there, you two? I feel like we're really far away.
Mike. Oh, echo.
And I have bad glasses too, so you really are.
Am I smaller?
They're slimming.
We might keep this arrangement.
Any other thoughts, comments, questions? What do you want to do?
I think we've covered every area that was of concern the last time.
So you're thinking the only change is to remove off-street from item F to A? Is that good with everybody? Okay, then somebody make a motion.
So you're going to keep the insurance then, the liability insurance requirement,
Guess we're
just
not really
upon
keeping it, so-
application.
Yeah, keep the insurance.
And it does have the provision for the underwriter to notify the city if it's canceled, and you're good with that?
Oh, no, I don't want that part.
Yeah, that's in E7, it's the second sentence. The
Take that one out.
The second
Okay.
sentence is all.
Okay, so can we combine 2F with 7 and just say proof of liability insurance for up to 500,000 or a minimum of 500,000?
Yeah,
And then just strike the rest of it for the annual or the,
Just
you
get
know,
rid of
updating
7
the-
then?
what's that?
Then just get rid of 7?
Get rid of 7, but then put 500 in item 2F.
Yeah,
okay.
that makes sense.
And then I'd make that motion to hold the first reading of that short-term rental ordinance. If that's good enough for, okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Sienna?
Ordinance 2020-742, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fortuna adopting a short-term rental ordinance by amending Title 17.
Sienna, excuse me. I forgot to open the public comment. Sorry. Does anyone from the public have any comments on this? Okay. Moving on.
Rewind.
Sienna?
Ordinance 2020-742, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fortuna adopting a short-term rental ordinance by amending Title 17 zoning regulations of the Fortuna Municipal Code, adding Section 17.06.184.5 short-term rentals. Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent?
Yes.
Mayor Long?
Yes. Thank you, Liz. Our next item is item C, to appoint selection committee for the city attorney. Staff report.
So with this item, the city attorney serves at the pleasure of the council and reports directly to the city council. The city of Fortuna contracted with David Tranberg for over 30 years for his service as city attorney. Dave Tranberg resigned in March of 2019, and following his resignation, the city contracted with the Mitchell Law Firm to provide city attorney services until a competitive selection process could take place. So staff prepared and circulated a request for qualifications for legal services on March 6, 2020 that outlined the requirements of the position and requested qualifications from qualified firms. Responses to the request for qualifications are due on March 27, 2020. And so I'd like to form a selection committee, and I am requesting that the council designate 2 council members to be on the selection committee for the city attorney, and that we form a selection committee that includes those 2 city council members, the city manager, city clerk, and the police chief. And so I'm looking for the council to make that designation of the selection committee.
What are you guys thinking? I would like to be on there. Anyone else?
I'm happy to serve unless somebody else wants it.
I'm happy also to serve, but
Everyone's happy, but nobody's doing it.
I'll do it.
So we need just 2. I mean, alternatively, the council could be the selection.
Jeremy wants to do it. That's fine.
Okay,
Okay, let's do Jeremy and Sue.
All right.
so somebody make a motion?
I make a motion to,
Wait, anybody care from the public? No public comment, okay.
is there an official motion that we have to do? Or just make a motion that Jeremy and Sue be on the committee?
That would be adequate, and then
Okay, that's my motion. Somebody in a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh my gosh, I think we're all kind of rummy up here or something. Okay, we have a discussion item for a police facility needs assessment and schematic design presentation, a discussion of property acquisition and next steps. This is kind of a big deal.
So if you could bear with us just 1 minute, we have 2 things to do. Our projector disconnects if we don't remind it every couple of minutes to get back on there. And then I need to get our architect on the phone. I'll be opening the presentation momentarily. Eric, are you? So our architect had some reasons why he didn't want to subject himself. He was being conscious of the coronavirus, and they have somebody at home with a weakened immune system, so he didn't want to participate or wasn't able to participate in the meeting. But he's on the phone, and so when we get to the point of presenting the feasibility study, then I'll put the mic next to my phone, and then he'll be able to run through those slides. He has them at his location, and he'll be able to run through them, and we'll put them up on the PowerPoint here as soon as we get the projector going.
Interesting, as soon as they tell us to cut down on our meeting attendance, everyone shows up.
I love it.
Thank you for being here, but this is weird.
Okay, so this is a project, we're calling it the Police Facility Needs Assessment, Schematic Design, and Property Acquisition and Next Steps. So this is a discussion item. It's really just to give the council an idea of where we're at and some of the criteria that we're contemplating. And so we'll have some various presentations, including from Mike Downey, our police chief, Eric Lindstrom, who's on the phone. Aaron Felmy put together a piece for the finance, and I put together the overview. I also noticed that we have one of our engineers from Whitchurch Engineering. Could you remind me of your name? Michael Gent, and so they were working on the structural part. So if there's questions that come up when we get to that, they may be able to help answer some of those questions. So this presentation includes a chronology, discussion of needs of the new facility, a presentation from our architect on schematic design and cost estimate, some of the funding assumptions and challenges, really, and then a summary of the presentation and the next steps. So there's a long chronology with this project, back to 1967 when the current police facility was built, when the city of Fortuna had a population of 4,000. In 1994, it was added to add 4 offices, I believe, or those are the chief, lieutenant, records clerk in that area. So it was popped out towards the front of the building to add those new offices. Really not a lot's been done with the building since then, but in 2002, there was a management consultation and organizational structure, primarily looking at the evidence review, and some improvements were made to improve the evidence handling and to make that system perform better. In 2003 and 2007, there were management consultations that concluded that the facility was not functionally adequate to meet the needs of the police facility. And so this has been out there for some time. And so part of a revenue bond measure that went out, $2 million in 2007, the city designated $2 million to go towards a designated new police facility. And I think there were some expectations that that $2 million could build a facility in conjunction with a mechanic shop at 280 12th Street. And I think there was some commingling that couldn't happen with the funds at both of those facilities, or a property couldn't be bought and purchased. But anyway, it wasn't enough to do that project. Ultimately, but the council approved the purchase of the 280 12th Street building in 2010 at a cost of $1.2 million, which left $800,000 to do a new police facility. In 2015, the city put out a request for qualifications and started architectural and contracted for architectural services that resulted in a needs assessment and a schematic design with a police facility that would be 18,000 square feet with a cost of about $10 million. The council looked at those and saw that that would be very difficult, if not impossible to fund, and they decided to move forward, sell the facility, and to not proceed with that $10 million project because it was outside of the realm of what was affordable by the city. In 2019, 280 12th Street was sold. The net proceeds from that sale were about $875,000. In 2019, city staff identified some parcels, the old Eureka Physical Therapy near the entrance of Newburgh Park, and then the adjacent vacant parcel, and then a city street right-of-way in that general area adjacent to those 2 parcels, with the net cost, including the feasibility study and the purchase of that land, for about $775,000. We're going to go into the results of that, but just real quickly with that schematic design, the building that was developed through that process is about 13,000 square feet at a cost estimate of about 5.5. So almost half of what the last feasibility study came up with, and not quite half and about 5,000 square feet less. So what we're looking at today is really council direction. Once we get through, I'll be asking the council, what its thoughts are for how we should best proceed, because unlike a lot of projects where we come in and we have all the answers, this is one that there's some uncertainty, and moving forward, there's a clear need for this facility that you'll see, but the question of how do we get there and how do we pay for it are not going to be quite as clear. And so we're not able to come with a firm recommendation and tell you exactly how we're going to have to pay for it, but more of a question of, do we want to pursue these sites? Do we want to purchase these? And then work towards trying to find a way to make them work. So with that, Mike Downey, our police chief, if he wants to, I've asked him to speak to some of the existing facility deficiencies. And I've noticed we have some members of our department. We had a couple sergeants and one of our officers too. And I would just like to say that this has been a collaborative process. We've had members from the department involved with the identifying the deficiencies as well as the development of the schematic design. So I feel pretty good about the amount of buy-in that we've had from the department. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mike.
Mayor Long, Mayor Long, fellow council members, thank you for this opportunity. When I took over the position as an interim police chief, one of my first objectives was to obviously survey the building that we were in. I prepared a memo. I think that you have probably received a copy of that memo. If not,
it's included in the staff report, that the council package, so they have it.
And it gives a pretty clear reflection of how I feel of where we're at this point. And the facility is truly lacking. I think that was probably identified some time ago, but I think my report kind of really emphasizes the areas that it is lacking. As you can see by this first slide, we're looking at our lobby area. For the first, to the left is coming into the main doors into City Hall itself, looking towards the police department, where it's actually where we conduct a lot of business with people that come into our lobby. The photo on the right is looking from inside our office into our enclosed lobby area outside the barred area there. It's very small and confining, and if we get more than 2 or 3 people in that immediate area outside that barred area, it gets rather claustrophobic and unable to really conduct business. The other problem with that also is that if we're ever live scanning, it's hard for employees to come in and out that main entrance. We have to go around the back because we have to close the area off due to limited space and not allowing someone to come through there. We have security concerns, obviously, at that front counter area, and that's why at times we'll have to take either party of a dispute outside, actually into the front of the City Hall itself to talk to them so that we can actually separate people that may be in conflict. And that poses a risk not only to officers and people in the immediate area of the office, but as we go out into the street, if anything became contentious, it could cause an issue with people coming into City Hall itself. The next photo is looking actually from our bathroom area. The dispatch center would be off to the right. And this area used to be much more open, but with the addition of staff, we've had to move office area into this general area in the front office. So the walkway there, you can see if we have 2 or 3 people, one conducting business at the counter and trying to pass through there, it becomes rather congested and hard to actually conduct business. But we've had to add these additional desks to the right just to accommodate staff. In fact, our compliance officer was desks as well. So that's an additional staff person that's been added in the last year or so. And as the slide shows, the lack of confidentiality and privacy in these workspace areas, there is no privacy when you're at the front counter there, and there's no way blocking view from those people working at their desks from the front counter area, which also poses a risk to those that are sitting there trying to conduct business and get work done. And our next shot is from basically the same area where the last picture was taken, into our dispatch area, which is small and finding. Usually we have one dispatcher working, and occasionally we have 2. And one of the biggest problems with this area is obviously the dispatchers' lack of privacy to do the business they have to do. Sometimes there's noise from the front counter area that interferes with them trying to work at the radio console, and also being visible from the front area. People coming in can see who the dispatchers are, what they're doing, and it's just, and as it says, hot and cold. In the summertime, it gets rather warm in there because of all the electronic equipment that's being used in there. There is a small air conditioner in the window, but it is not enough to really keep up with the heat that's generated in there. And of course, there's security from the alley, which is right on the other side of that common wall. There's a major alleyway there. And this is looking in our general briefing break room area. So we have briefings that are done here. People come in to eat their lunch, to take their break. The space is very small and confining. You can't have more than one function taking place at a time. If you're having a special operation, you need to brief there. For that special operation, there's also a lack of security for people coming in and out. It's hard to say you come through here when this might only way in and out of the building to something in that confined area where we have our live scanning. So there is a direct link of lack of privacy here, able to actually conduct confidential business, especially if someone's sitting there having their meeting or taking their break, and we're trying to deal with issues that come to confidential. Actual work area, there's stations, officers to work on their reports, which is inadequate because many times there'd be 3 or 4 officers work, so they've had to utilize the FTO office as well to access computers and equipment to conduct business. So this is just for the amount of volume of business that's conducted in this area. And this is of our detective's office. We have detectives, both of them are in this area. They share office, and it's really too small and inadequate for the type of business that they would conduct. And the people that would come through on a normal basis to be interviewed or to be to give a statement or that type of thing. And it's also so close to the area, it's hard to have that privacy. Someone come out of the office to give information, to give a statement, to confidentiality. So desperately seek. And again, I mentioned most of the people in the office, if that door is not secured, can hear what's going on there. Even with the door closed, you can hear on the other side of that wall to the left is my office, and oftentimes I can hear things being discussed in that office. So there is a real lack of confidentiality and privacy in that regard. This is just the general area of the front office where we've had issues with storing, supplies and that type of thing. We just don't have an adequate space to store this type of stuff, and so it builds up in a common area. And this is an area that's viewed by the public too. The public coming in to conduct business with the police department can at times see an area that's not kept up as well as it should be. There's a lack of professionalism in that regard. And it doesn't give as good a view of the city and of the police department as it should be given. Shot of our area down in the basement where we keep evidence and that type of thing. The space is inadequate. The ventilation is inadequate. A large amount of evidence is stored down there. And one of the issues that I saw when the first time I went down there is that it's in such a cramped area that I can see a lack of being able to keep evidence separated properly. I could see a commingling of things that could happen over a period of time, and actually a loss of items because of the close proximity to other evidentiary items from other cases. So it's just lacking. I think that Robin Paul, who's in charge of that, has done a good job in creating a system of managing that evidence, but still there's a lot of room for error, and it's just and with the amount of evidence that we deal with on a yearly and daily basis, quickly becomes overrun. And this is the alley area. I have a quick story to share about that. A couple of weeks ago, we had a subject that had been arrested, and we'd had some issues with him. He was somewhat combative, and one of the patrol cars had to actually back into the alley so that we could transfer the subject from one car to another. While this was taking place, a delivery driver came into the alley and, of course, could not pass through because we were conducting business. He became rather angry, and there was a verbal confrontation, honking his horn. We tried to tell him it's just going to be a couple of minutes. Please, hold your horses, so to speak. But it turned rather ugly rather quickly, and the problem with that is when we have someone in our custody, they have no ability to avoid or to get out of a contentious or somewhat violent situation. So we have a responsibility to protect that arrestee that we've taken into custody and be able to conduct our business without the interference of the public, whether it be well-meaning or not. And this incident could have turned rather ugly. We were able to diffuse it and go on from there. But this is another example of why this area is inadequate for dealing with the public and doing the business we do on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Lindstrom. He's our architect that we brought on board to do some preliminary work and revisit the needs assessment, and then update a feasibility study and to come up with a schematic design for our new building. So Eric, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, you're live at the Fortuna City Council meeting.
All right, thank you so much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah, I think you're good.
It's okay. Is the Merritt, is the
We're
PowerPoint?
on the first slide.
You're on the first slide, okay. Well, thank you very much for Mayor and council members for allowing me to present this to you tonight. Wish I could be there in person, but we'll have to do it this way for tonight. The first slide that I'm showing is kind of I'm gonna walk through basically five stages here in the process that we went through with the feasibility study, and I have it organized, as you can see, with introduction, programming, existing conditions, schematic design, and cost estimating. The first slide kind of shows a little sneak peek into a concept for what could be the entrance to the new Fortuna Police facility. There'll be some more slides as we move forward. Can we go to the next slide, Merritt?
Okay, go ahead, Eric.
Okay, thank you. So as an outline here, I wanted to walk through the various stages of the feasibility study. Number one is doing an assessment of current needs of the City of Fortuna Police Department in relationship to the needs assessment study performed by Leach Mounts Architects in 2015. It was a very robust study, and we felt right off the bat that it was important to not reinvent the wheel in regards to so much of the information that had been gathered, collected, organized, and understood by that study. So really starting out with the needs assessment study and the information contained within it, as we were beginning to look at this potential new site with the existing building, and starting to look at how the new program might work on that site. So in number two, we conducted programming and space planning services to define current and future needs, likes and requirements, standards for the police department. Number three, we conducted a preliminary code assessment to verify applicable regulatory codes and standards. This is an emergency services building, defined as an emergency services building through the Division of the State Architect's Office. Also, in terms of its construction level of quality, it would be similar to that of public school construction, just kind of giving a basis there for a standard of construction. Number four, we did an assessment and document the existing conditions of the overall site. There's two individual parcels that make up the totality of the site. Also looked at regional location. The location of that site in relationship to what is becoming an emerging civic hub within the city. The parks that are there, as well as the new senior center, I believe, and the work that the McLean Foundation has been doing on the north portion of the site, north of the parks. So this also looked like a wonderful opportunity in relocating the police department to this location to really anchor that civic hub within the city, as well as providing a much greater level of protection and safety also within that emerging civic hub. So we also looked at the existing building and existing site, building utilities, really wanting to understand what is there and what is the flexibility of what is there. Number five was we developed the schematic design, addressing both current and future needs likes and requirements, also the standards for the police department. Number 6, conduct the design process through a series of design meetings and addressing comments. So it was very collaborative. It was very exciting working with officers and members and staff of the police department, as well as staff from the city. Very interactive meetings. We really got into some very detailed information through the process. It's been a really great process. Number 7, making adjustments to the schematic design to account for those comments, as well as the site constraints. Number 8, developing a preliminary cost estimate, which includes both hard and soft costs, project costs, in an effort to support the city's creation of a project budget. So the cost estimating portion is really there to help to support the creation of the overall project budget that will go, as things move forward into the future, becomes the basis for how design will occur and how the construction, the type of construction will happen. Number 9, adjust the preliminary cost estimate and schematic design in an effort to meet the city's target budget range. So making adjustments as we went along in an iterative process of doing some design, some changes, checking that back against the budget. A real goal for this was developing a very doable and realistic project that has very real cost estimates associated with it, so that we've got a good comfort level moving forward that this project can really happen. And then number 10, creating a final feasibility study document, which we're working on now, which will also become part of the city's records for this project. I know that it's been an ongoing process for many years. So next slide, Merritt.
Okay. So
from that, we'll go right into some of the programming that we did. Again, starting with the needs assessment study and really looking at assessing the current and future staffing requirements. We also looked at with that also needing to understand the parking needs that would be required in association to the number of officers, sworn officers, and staff, as well as the potential for the amount of public parking that would be needed as well. Overall understanding of the size of the facility needed to accommodate staff increases potentially through time. So flexibility of space, which also has to do with how we would look at the structural design as well. So, long spans with trusses and things, so that to provide as much interior flexibility as we can, as things need to change through time. Number 4, planning basis for indicating opportunities on the site for future facility expansions. So you'll see as we move through and look at the schematic design, you'll see an area north on the site where there's a possibility for future expansion if needed. So go ahead and go to the next slide, Merritt.
So do we need to be able to read any of these numbers, because we can't read them?
So Eric,
Saying.
the comments is that
Sure.
they're having a hard time reading the numbers, and I don't know if you want to describe the table a little bit, the two tables on the left, or if you're expecting the council to kind of understand those. I mean, essentially what you're looking at is, do you want to describe those, or?
Well, if it's important for us to know that right now, if it's not, we can get the slideshow later and look at it, but we just letting you know we can't really see it.
Did you catch that, Eric?
No, sorry.
So really, they're not able to read very well. The table's a little small, but basically the table shows the population and the number of sworn officers, civilian total, and really come up with a ratio of the total staff per 1,000 residents. And so I think the point probably on those, and these are from the previous study, Eric, or these are the updated
Yes,
numbers?
this is taken directly from the needs assessment.
And so these are just
that was shown
projections of
before.
what the future staffing levels will be in the table, and then what a ratio of those are per the population. So just
Yeah.
really one of the bases to figure out how much it'll ultimately play into how much space is needed for the new facility.
Right, and at this point, using that more as a guideline, to understand how much square footage would be needed in the total amount of both sworn officers and staff. And again, these are projections for what may be in terms of the need. So, does that
Yeah. So now we're on
answer?
Now we're on the slide with all the different flow chart.
Organization and staffing chart,
sorry, yeah.
number 4. Yeah, thank you. So in moving along with basis for planning, understanding the organizational structure of the police department, and again, this chart is taken, again, directly from the needs assessment study in understanding how the different operations division, support services division, and generally both the hierarchical structure as well as the internal structure of how the department operates. And again, this slide is, and the information here is kind of just meant more as an overview to kind of show what process we went through in analyzing and understanding this information as we went through programming and the design process. So number 2, this understanding translates into the desired spatial organization of various departments of the facility and their relationships. So this begins to move directly into. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Merritt.
Okay.
So planning and design guidelines. These were the overarching, the 9 that are shown here. We kind of started with a basis of what was in the needs assessment, but we also needed to do quite a bit of paring down and editing of the requirements and the information that was present in that, because it was based on a very different scale of facility, as well as what was anticipated to be needed. So I just wanted to show this as to demonstrate kind of the different areas that we analyzed and looked into in terms of understanding that needs assessment and then paring that information down. So we had overall project objectives. Without getting into a lot of detail into each of these, I just wanted to give an overview of all of the different aspects that we looked into in the programming stage. So overall project objectives: site and parking, general building, communication systems, security zoning and systems, regulatory codes, electrical, mechanical, structural. There's quite a bit of information to kind of sift through and organize as you move into the design process. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Merritt.
Okay.
And so with the space planning phase, the police department had chosen concept design B as a great starting point, because it's very similar to what we were going to be working with this site, with an existing building, and then adding on to that existing building. So from the needs assessment study by Leach Mouth Architects, this concept B was chosen. One of the first things that we had to begin to look at, because we needed to reduce square footage, which of course is going to translate to overall potential cost of the facility, was looking at what functions could be removed or may not be needed. And so we went through that process, and also looking at which functions within the facility could be modified, either in scale or combined with other functions. So in going through that process and identifying where that was going to be happening in which departments, is something that we went through in a series of meetings. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Merritt.
Go ahead.
Is that on? Are you on slide number 7?
I don't know, the space planning
I think
with
so.
the
Yeah.
tables.
Okay. Thank you. These numbers may be hard to read.
You want to just describe what it is then, Eric? And
Sure. So we went through space planning where we identified each of the departments clearly, and then which spaces and functions were going to be grouped into those departments, looking both at function in terms of the interior of the space, but also square footage. And so what you're seeing here in the space needs programming document are the square footage breakdowns and totals in each department that we worked on through time. And I showed here, there's the initial floor area, which is kind of the second column over. I wanted to demonstrate that we started with a square footage that was related to concept B, and then as we worked through the process, we were able to reduce that square footage. And so you'll see reductions in those numbers on the actual tables here as we went through. And so we carefully went through each of these functions, analyzed them, understood what needed to happen in terms of the interior usage of it, everything from furniture to how the space was going to be utilized. And again, without walking through each one of these, I just want to give a general overview.
So Eric, maybe we could just summarize, like for example, you see the administration, which is a brown tab, and so originally using the concept that was done in 2015, you can see I think that's 1,970 square feet, whereas in the revised plan it's about 1,500. You can see dispatch in the middle, it's blue, and I think that's 910, and we got that one came down to 870.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one, you can see the public areas went from about 2,800 down to 2,400. So really working as a group, we had our officers, lieutenant, dispatch, records clerk. So this was something that wasn't just done by the architect and the city manager. This was something that we looked at the actual floor plan and layout and worked with our officers to try to come up with where could we make some reductions that made sense and still had the same functionality. Want to move forward?
Sure, absolutely. It definitely has been a team effort, and it should be.
And so you can see the overall, it went from 20,136 in the leach mounts square feet to 13,800 for the facility that Eric's going to show you the floor plan coming out. And so even that 13,800 includes generator room, some trash enclosures, other things that might not normally be included in a square footage.
Let's go to the next slide, Merritt.
On the space planning.
Okay. Yeah, and you'll also see again some of the reductions here for evidence storage and patrol facility support. And then totals down at the bottom that highlight how we arrived at the 13,800. You'll see in the total square footage of the initial floor area, related to concept B, it says 14,844. There's a set of spaces or functions that we're not showing in this table that were related to that concept B, and that's why the number's different on this table. I just wanted to point that out.
So these are the remaining zones of the building: the evidence storage on top in green, patrol in blue in the middle, facility support. So you can see some pretty significant reductions, particularly in the gray where facility support, some of those things were able to be cut down in size, like the locker rooms and the other facilities. So really just trying to get something that met the purpose, but again, that was, smaller and still could meet the needs of the department. So we're on existing site now, Eric.
Okay, existing conditions. So I already mentioned in terms of the location of this site in relation to the emerging civic hub within the city. This is also a more compact site, so also looking at maintenance costs through time. There's less to take care of with this site through time versus a larger site. Let's go to the next slide, Mayor.
Okay.
Is that number 10? Go ahead.
Yeah, we're on the next slide, existing site. So you can see the parcels. Do you want to
Yes, parcel 1 and parcel 2, yeah, both of those parcels.
Parcel 1 is the existing Eureka, or the former Eureka Physical Therapy. Parcel 2 is the vacant lot, it's just gravel. And then you can see on the right, it's the City of Fortuna 50-foot right-of-way, which there used to be a lease of that property to parcel 2, but now it's again, that lease expired, and so that's city property that could be added to this project site. Anything else, Eric?
We also did in terms of the existing building survey, understanding the existing structure was really important for looking at cost-saving potentials with this. So the structural system, something that I'll kind of talk a little bit as we get into the schematic design part of the presentation, but I just wanted to mention that with regards to the structural system of the building, we were able to maintain the structural lines of the building even in the new remodeling work, which is a huge cost savings. Let's go ahead and move into.
We're on the site plan.
I know I'm moving through this quickly, but
that's fine. We have a lot to cover.
Okay. So this slide is the schematic design, the site plan for the schematic design on the site in question here that we've been looking at. You can see on the right side, the right of way, which is the old Newburgh Road portion that connected up to Ronaville Road. We're going to be, in this scheme, we would be utilizing that as secured parking for both sworn officers as well as staff, and really separating out the public's parking area from the secured parking area was really critical. It's one of the things that we had to look at in terms of creating security for the facility and for the officers on site. So we had to address all of a lot of the typical project needs, waste recycling enclosure and public walkways, looking into LID or bioswale storm drain filtration area, which we may be locating, could be on the south side of the building, which is closer to Ronaville Road, bicycle parking, rolling security gates that are on the north and south flanking sides of the secured parking area. We also have an 8-foot concrete masonry unit site security wall that goes around an entire portion of the site, helping to create a secure area for the department functions of the facility. We're looking at potential areas where we could do a chain link fence to maybe reduce cost as well. Merritt, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, just so you can see, just for if everybody's not oriented to the site, the bottom, kind of along the bottom horizontal line is Ronaville Road, and sweeping around it is Newburgh Road, and beyond that is where the new McLean site is.
Yeah.
So I just floor plan.
What's that?
I advanced the slide. Are you done with that?
Oh, number 12. Yeah, we'll move on to the floor plan. So, in developing the design and the layout, designation of public areas of the police station and separation from department operations is really important and vital for both for security as well as you could say the protection for both the officers as well as the public. dispatch department operates as a standalone island. So was really important to consider in terms of its location within the facility. And you can see it's the teal color. We color coded these in relationship to the space planning chart that you saw previously, so that it was easy to see which functions were related to which parts of the building. We also used CMU walls in a portion of the design, especially on the evidence and the patrol areas for what we would call hard security needs. So there's hard security and soft security in terms of the systems of the building that we have to look at. So your hard security is just as it sounds, like CMU walls that are gonna try to stop a truck from driving through them. That's hard security. Your soft security would be your video systems, audio systems, recording systems throughout the facility. Those types of security. Secured access to the intake entrance, which is on the right side or the east side of the facility. So separating the public entrance from the officer intake entrance was a needed requirement. Let's see, ample circulation of the corridor. There's quite a bit of circulation. Those corridors are 6 feet wide to give quite a bit of space. Merritt, did you want to say anything?
No, I think we're going to run through
Okay.
the various different.
We'll go to next slide.
Okay, we're on dispatch.
Or did you do administration?
Oh.
Already?
No, I missed it. Go ahead. Sorry. You're on,
Okay.
on public.
Let's see. Okay. Is that slide 13 that you're on? Sorry.
Let's go back.
Sorry.
So we're on administration, number 1.
Okay. Thank you. So I've highlighted I'm going to kind of go through here where there's certain portions of the plan that are highlighted, just so you can also see the functions. Administration, chief of police office, conference room.
So this is the area in orange.
Yes, excuse me. The area in orange. Administration, storage, lieutenant office, administration supervisor's office, volunteers area, record storage room, mail and copy room. Being the administrative functions, they needed, especially the offices needed to be clustered together, and the majority, I think, all three of the offices are contained within what would be the existing building, the portion of the existing building. So you're looking at both the existing building as well as the addition onto the building, which totals the 13,800 square feet. The existing building is 5,590, and then the new addition is 8,210 square feet, which gives us the total. So we'll just kind of run through the different. Let's go to the next slide, Merritt.
Okay, you're on dispatch.
Okay. So that is the dispatch island, quote unquote island, that I was referring to before, that really needs to operate as a kind of standalone entity within the facility. It also needed access directly to the outside, which it does have, but it has it within the secured area of the site. So it's not exiting directly out onto the public way.
So improvements you can see too, also off the dispatch, they have a bathroom, a break room specifically for dispatch, and over to the left, you can see there's a dispatch machine, equipment room. Right now, it's spread all across the department. It creates a lot of problems. There's also an exit out here to a patio area if the dispatchers need to get some air. So that's one of the, areas that we really need to see some improvement over the existing facility, and is really important to this design. All right, you want to move to the next one?
Sure.
Okay.
That's
the public,
we're in public. Yes. So this portion of the facility, we really wanted to spend some time on, and especially the public lobby, as well as the EOC training and community room. These would be really the engagement areas, public engagement areas of the facility. So giving them some more attention, looking at increasing the budget, let's say, in the public lobby area to get a nicer, more inviting space. We can kind of run through the public list here. We've got reception office and clerical work, public lobby, women's restroom, public, men's restroom, public, and those are restrooms specifically for the public. Live scan and booking room, excuse me, interview room number 1 and number 2, and that would be for let's see, in the EOC training and community room, which is the larger. You can see the larger room kind of in the lower left corner of the public area there, which also has an access directly to the public way. So in terms of community functions or community type meetings, things that may need to take place, that there is a separate entrance for that. Not all public access needs to come in through the front or primary front entrance.
So this would be the primary front entrance right here. This would be the citizens parking lot. That's the lobby.
Yes.
Public restrooms, EOC storage, and then the interview rooms are here, the various interview rooms, and then the live scan room.
I know it would be easier if I was there with my laser pointer.
I'm pointing these out if you want to walk.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we're having laser pointer difficulties.
Let's go ahead and move to the next slide.
Okay. We're on evidence.
Evidence storage. This is also a function that needed a good amount of hard security around it, both concrete blockers or concrete masonry unit walls, as well as increased durability of construction of light wood frame walls with plywood and then sheetrock on them to deter any kind of easy breaking through or anything through those walls, either from the interior or from the exterior. So within that, with the evidence room, there's an interview and evidence viewing room, which is mainly for internal functions within the department, drug storage, gun storage, bulk storage of items, a receiving area, as well as a lab and work area, which is included in the evidence room or overall evidence room. And it was important that this had an external entrance as well, or a kind of roll-up door where larger items could be taken in and out, and that currently it flanks the secured parking area. It also needed to be close to patrol, which it currently is, in terms of accessing or viewing of evidence. Go to the next slide, Merritt, please.
Go ahead.
And we're on to patrol here. So the sergeant's offices, FTO watch, CDR offices, report writing area, which is a general area in which report writing can take place versus standalone individual rooms. There's a briefing room, which is kind of like a conference room, an armory and gun storage, which have to have a heavy degree of protection around them. So we have concrete masonry unit walls for that, as well as basically a concrete lid or roof to help enclose all of the ammunition and those types of things that are stored in there, and kind of protect the rest of the facility also from that. We have the booking area, which includes a cuff bench, so there, we do not have, similar to the needs assessment study previous, we don't have holding facilities as part of the facility. Just a booking, basically a booking area with benches that people brought in can be cuffed to. Hard interview room in the toilet area, as well as patrol storage, two patrol storage rooms, and two detectives' offices, which are the detectives' offices are actually over by administration, the record storage room area. They're located kind of in that center portion of the donut, so to speak. Merritt, did you want to add anything?
Nope, we're on the next slide.
Okay, number
support.
18. Facility support. The locker rooms for both men and women, break room and kitchen, janitor closet, electrical and mechanical rooms, a generator room, and bicycle storage. Both the generator room and bicycle storage are in the upper portion you see of the plan with the highlighted red around them. They're actually physically separated from that portion of the building. They're kind of standalone currently.
Okay,
let's go on to the next slide. Okay, perspective renderings. So as part of the feasibility study, we needed to take design to enough of a detailed level so that once we got into the cost estimating portion of it, of the process, that we were doing both unit costs as well as square foot costs, and that the unit costs would inform those square foot costs rather than just having straight square foot costs. It was important to have enough detail to be able to do so. So I'm going to walk through kind of the perspective renderings here. And again, these are a potential and possible design for the facility. You want to move through these, Merritt?
Okay.
On to slide 20. And again, this is showing the public entrance side of the facility, which has the wood siding on it. Kind of using materials to designate different parts of the facility, different functions of the facility. Let's go to slide 21. Part of what we were also trying to build in here with the design and the budget would be a photovoltaic array system for power generation. I think we're looking at, Merritt, we're looking at a possible grant for that.
Yeah, when we get to the estimate, but we may pull that
When we
back.
get to all
It has
that.
a high initial cost, but one that has a high likelihood of being grant funded. So in the estimate, you'll see we break that out separately, and we'll discuss it there.
Okay. This is showing an overall view of the site and the facility.
This is Ronerville Road here.
Yeah.
With Newburgh kind of wrapping around it, going up towards the McLean campus.
Yeah, okay. looking over towards the parks.
And so you can see this hard security wall in the back, the dark gray CMU wall. So that would all be area that's not accessible to the public. And then the shorter one, this is an area where there'd be landscaping or LID stormwater improvements along the front in the light green. And you can see a small awning along the entrance to the building, this one. And then this is the public parking area is essentially the same as where it is for the EPT building now.
Correct. And the current single slope roof there is, we're basically matching and continuing what is currently at the old EPT building. So we're just continuing that sloped roof into the extension of the facility. Let's go to slide 22.
Okay.
And this is looking from the east side. And you can see the covered parking area, which is going to be helpful for intake and officers that are bringing people out of vehicles and into the booking area, so that they can do so not exposed to the weather and the elements. And you'll also see the sliding security gates, both of them there as well, flanking the secure parking. Let's go to the next slide, Merritt.
Okay.
And so this is from the north side of the site, looking southwest. And you'll see on the exterior of the building, you'll see the concrete block masonry units there, the block walls. And again, those are the hard security measures. Let's go to the next slide. This one is from the public parking area, looking at the public entrance and the covered walkway with the canopy. How are we doing on time?
Let's keep it moving. We got some ground to cover still, but we're doing
Okay. Let's go ahead and go to slide 25. It starts to come into cost estimating here. So what I wanted to show here was the original Concept B cost estimate, which also includes some of the square footages. The totals there with contingency were at 8.9, close to 9 million, which included the hard and soft costs. The way that, of course, that the square footage is calculated is that you have different costs per square foot for different complexities or qualities of construction. In this case, for any time you've got an existing building, you're going to have a different square foot cost than what would be in addition to that or adding to that building. And so this is taken directly out of the needs assessment study of that Concept B. So I just wanted to highlight here the 20,136 square feet. So the initial hard cost was 5.6 million. The site work was about 760,000. And then with furniture, fixtures, and equipment and communications, that subtotal, we're up to 7 million with that, and then with soft costs, 873,000 with a 12% contingency of about 954,000, brings us right up to the 8.9 million.
And again, this is from the 2015 study that.
Excuse me, yeah, the 2015 study, yes.
Reiterate for the public. Now we're on your preliminary cost estimate.
Okay. What would be a good way to go through this? Should we look at totals or individual?
Just look at the major segments, I think. Like you can look at the remodel portion and major headings, and then we'll just look at the totals.
That's fine. Okay. We'll start with the existing building, which is A. We have within this both building demolition as well as the new construction, which is the remodeling and some retrofitting to the existing building. That existing building subtotal is 1.46 million. Cost estimate portion B, which is the new building addition for new construction. We're right at about $300 a square foot. But again, different functions and their requirements for both level of quality as well as construction type change the square foot costs, which the numbers may be hard to read.
So basically, the big difference is you can see the building you have demolition and you have new construction costs at $250 a square foot, and then when you look at for the addition, it's more at $300. So slightly higher cost for the new and remodel. Let's keep moving through pretty quickly.
Okay. So we've got new building addition subtotals is 2.73 million. So our building hard costs are in this preliminary estimate, we're looking at 4.19 million for hard costs of the building. Let's go to the next slide, Mary.
Okay.
And then for the building site work, we're right around 386,921. So the combined total of preliminary hard costs for building and site were 4.581 million. Then we get into soft costs, which are combined here, which you can see about 458,000 for architecture, planning, engineering, as well as project management. We also have a line item here for a special inspector, which most likely is going to need to be DSA certified. We've got 515,000 for those soft costs. So our combined site and building construction hard costs plus soft costs were at $5,096,000. We also have we have a 7% contingency versus a 10 or 12% contingency. Again, trying to find ways to reduce costs where we can. That's at 320,000, which puts us at our 5.417 million total. We also have some additional project costs, which are directly under that, for the 911 dispatch equipment, communications antenna, and the photovoltaic system. Merritt, could you talk briefly about?
Yeah, I mean, these are items we're looking for ways to bring the cost down, and so there's a grant cycle every so often. I forgot how many every set number of years, every 5 years, where they pay the city gets money from the state to upgrade their dispatch equipment. So our hope was that we could time this so that we could take advantage of that grant. The communications antenna was also pulled off for a similar reason, and then the photovoltaic, we'd seek grants. So we wanted to pull those out of the project cost, but they're significant. You see the dispatch, the total of all those is almost $1 million. So that's going to have to come from somewhere. But those are some areas where we thought we would have a high likelihood of grants.
Yeah, to cover those costs potentially.
So Eric,
that concludes the presentation.
Yeah, so we're going to have a few more. If you want to go ahead and mute, I'll bring you back on if there's questions at the end.
Sounds great. I'll mute.
Okay.
Thank you again.
All right. Okay, so we have some financial considerations. I've asked our finance director to put some of these, and really what this is looking forward at our budget. What kind of revenue do we have, and how could we afford a facility like this? And so, Aaron, do you want to run through these next couple slides? And if you want a pointer, I've got one for you. Middle button.
All right, so we've kind of got the total cost estimate, $5.5 million. So the question now becomes, how do we pay for that? And so we're going to look at a few debt service scenarios to see how much financing $5.5 million would be. But before we do that, I thought I would show a projection of Measure E, our transaction and use tax, because this is ultimately where the debt service payment would have to come from in order to finance the new facility. And so you can see the two lines up top are actual adopted budget numbers. So those are the previous 2 years. And then I'm just going to work my way through. I know this is a lot of numbers, but the first column here, projected revenues, you can see I've estimated that increase at 1.5% annually, and that is what we've seen the last 4 years, was 1.5% roughly each year. So kind of continue that trend down. The next column are general fund deficit. You can see the last 2 years, 318,000, 393,000. We projected kind of in the middle of that, 350. And this is we hope to kind of keep that the same, but this is based on if we keep the same services that we have currently in place, we kind of expect that structural deficit to continue on. The next column is the general fund portion of the CalPERS unfunded liability payment increases. And so you can see those continually go up, and then they max out here in fiscal year 2031-32. And so this is going to take out almost an additional $300,000 from the general fund, or which would be passed on through Measure E. And so this is really the big year that we're looking at as we kind of look at our debt service payments. The next column here, the Measure E funded positions. These are our two police detectives, the field community services officer, and our Parks and Rec director positions. So if we keep those in place, we've estimated a 3.5% increase to their pay and benefits. That's kind of what we've seen historically the last few years. So if we continue that trend down, we can see here we have our remaining Measure E funds that have been doled out for special projects or things like that. And so you can see last year was $680,000. And then as we work our way down, it slowly starts to decrease, and then here is the lowest year, which is about $460,000 of remaining Measure E funds that could potentially be used for the police facility, and we'll take a look at the other projects that were funded by the $680,000 last year. You want to go to the next slide? Yeah. So now going to the projected debt service payments. We reached out to our bond counsel who did our last bond reissuance, and he gave us some updated rates and some different options here. And so you can see the first one is a private placement. He estimated 17 years. That was the same amount of years that our water and wastewater bonds term end. And those would have about a 2.85% interest rate currently. If we were to finance $5 million, that would translate to an annual payment of $375,000. The second scenario would be a public offering, payment term to be over 30 years. Also, the interest rate would be about 2.85%. And so increasing the years from 17 to 30 brings the payment down from $375,000 down to roughly $250,000. The third option is through the USDA. They have bonds that we could purchase. Those also would be over 30 years. Their rate is estimated at 3.5%. However, these both are bond issuances, so we would see potentially a couple $100,000 in order to get those issued. That would be an additional cost, whereas the USDA bonds have a lot lower cost to get the loan. So if we finance $5 million, that would translate to a $271,000 annual payment. And then the final scenario, we drop down the amount to be financed from $5 million down to $4 million. And you can see that reduced the annual payment from $271,000 down to $217,000 annually, which was about a $55,000 difference. And so obviously that $1 million would have to come from somewhere. That would have to be general fund reserves. And so one of the additional benefits of doing that, besides saving our annual interest payments, would be we could start construction, or at least start some of the preliminary work without having to issue bonds. So that means we wouldn't have to start paying interest on our debt service until the building's actually in the construction phase, whereas last time the city issued bonds before they had even had any plans, and so we were paying interest on money that we weren't utilizing. So you can go to the next slide, Merritt. So here, the bottom line. So this was from the first slide that I showed. You can see the least amount of funding for Measure E would be in fiscal year 2031-32, $461,000. If we took the lowest of those debt service payment options, which was $217,000, that would leave just $244,000 left, and that also doesn't include any operating costs, which We don't have a very good estimate on that at the current moment, but we just put in an estimate of 40,000 annually, so that'd actually bring it down to about 200,000. And then this on the right is what the Measure E and the City Council approved to be funded from Measure E outside of the positions. So you can kind of, see some PD equipment, radio upgrade, Hillside Creek Grant project match, street funding, storm drain funding, illegal camp cleanups, some parkland acquisition improvement funding, replacement of roller skates, Newburgh Park lighting project, staffing to provide more open gym times, and then some other equipment and medical appointments for the seniors. And so this is just kind of like an exercise, 681,000, trying to pare this down to 200,000 only would be what would be required in fiscal year 2031-32, but and even to a lesser extent over the course of the next 10 years, if the city chose to proceed with this project. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Merritt, and he can.
So I just have one question or comment. Aaron, did you take in the fact that we're going to lose the 200,000 that we currently get for the redevelopment agency in your numbers?
I did not. That's all, general fund projections, I kind of left those alone, and that was where the general fund deficit would stay the same. So, depending on what happens there, that would definitely be another analysis that we would have to.
Well, we know we're going to lose it at some point. I mean, I can't imagine we're going to keep it for more than another 3 years.
No.
So we need to take 200,000 off of those numbers, I think, for them to be real.
So then what we see in that scenario, if we lost 200, is, there's, aside from the allocated positions in the police facility, there wouldn't be a lot left.
That's what I'm saying. I think that those numbers need to be 200,000 less than they are to be real. And that's scary.
So, summary, just to kind of recap some of the things we've seen. A larger facility, it's really a need. Our officers can't continue to work in the current police facility. It's too small. We've had post reviews, architectural studies. The opinion of our officers is that facility is too small. A lot of deficiencies, mostly size, space, the security. The impacts of that, it'll negatively affect morale, the level of service, retention, and ultimately could have higher costs, whether it's due to errors or loss of officers, excessive overtime, things like that. Parcel feasibility, our architect told us, that these parcels, he's demonstrated that they'd be suitable for reuse. They're in close proximity and desirable because they're near a whole community center complex in our park. The project size, we did what we could. We were hoping to come in lower, but, we don't think it's wise to have a project budget of less than the 5.5 million that was presented, and there's still some caveats to that we're going to find some grants for equipment or solar or, the dispatch equipment. So again, we wouldn't advise using a budget number lower than that. Some of the financial considerations with a project cost at $5.5 million, there's no way the city can afford this without the reauthorization of Measure E. Measure E sunsets in 2025. The council's indicated that they want to go in this current year. So if without it, it's completely with it, it's questionable. Without it, it's impossible. So, the council we're not going to know if we're going to close escrow on these parcels, we're not going to know if we're going to be able to fund the project or have reauthorization of Measure E until afterwards. Additional revenue sources and cost reductions may also be needed for the project to be affordable. So even with Measure E, it's close. How can we bring down the cost? Where can we get more grants? Again, this project and this plan is unlike the rest. Usually we have a roadmap of how we're going to do a whole thing. We just can't do that right now. So we'd be moving forward on faith with purchasing this location. And as Aaron demonstrated, the reduction in other projects and programs. When you have less money, you can do less, so you'd have to give up some of the parks and other projects, and that's a question that will be taken up with the Measure E committee. Is this police facility consistent with the intention of Measure E as well? And so that's something I think we need to consider and make sure that we're being true to the original intentions of Measure E. Say for example, if we don't move forward with this one, is there going to be another, more affordable location somewhere else? It seems like with time, most things get more expensive, not less expensive. So the next steps, really what we need to do is, figure out whether or not we want to close escrow on these parcels that we purchased. Identify funding. We're going to have to work really hard to look for funding. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of grants for police facilities. There's loan programs. It's just, an area where we're going to have to really get creative. Are there different ways we could fund parts of it? Are there partnerships? Are there ways that we can add revenue? Coming up with a funding plan and a way to fund this and generate more revenue. There's different ideas. Can we do more dispatch for the region and possibly bring in more revenue that way? Again, reauthorization of the sales tax, Measure E number 2020, that's essential. Can't go without it. The council could consider, more of a sales tax, but unlikely that would be favorable. I mean, I think that we've had discussions and the council feels pretty firm about keeping that at 0.75%. So that's, probably something that we don't want to look at moving forward. But coming up with a funding plan, ways to reduce costs and identify revenue. One thing we can't do is reduce the cost so much that we don't have a police facility that's going to last for 20 years or 25 years. You want to have something that's going to meet the long-term needs of the department. So what are the drawbacks? Say we proceed forward with the acquisition of this property. What are we putting at risk? So we have the money that we generated from the sale of 280 12th Street. It could be used to purchase these properties, and if unsuccessful, we can't come up with a plan within the next 2 years. We'll have to maintain those properties, but they could be sold or potentially reused. You have one, the vacant parcel and the existing right-of-way could be converted to a parking lot, so that could fit in with Newburgh Park expansions. But the hope would be to continue, find a way to fund and build a police facility. But if not, you run the risk of doing exactly what the city did before on 280 12th Street, which is buying a property, maybe selling it for less. It's unusual for cities to make money developing real estate. So I don't think I would say we could make more, but if we can't find a way to fund this project, we'd have to sell it and take whatever loss that we might see with that property. So that's what we have. Again, this is one where we've identified those properties as ones that would be ideal, and they're supported by the police department. We could build a facility there. The big unknown and in the questionable part right now is the long-term funding for that. So, do we proceed, purchase these properties and move forward? And really what we're looking for is direction. We need to, figure out whether we want to finalize escrow and close escrow on these parcels, or whether we want to and work to figure out a way to fund this. But staff's a little bit at a loss. Usually we like to come with a plan that we know will work, but we can't guarantee that. We can't guarantee the voters are going to reauthorize Measure E. There's a lot of unknowns here, and but our biggest risk is buying some property and reselling it. And the most valuable piece really is the old EPT building, which, the purchase for that is a little over $600,000. So we could take a loss on that, but I think those other properties do have a lot of utility for the city, even if we were able to hang on to them. And the cost of those is very low. So with that, I'd turn it over to council. And if you have any questions, for our architect, or you want to just have a discussion or inclinations on how to proceed. You want to get the lights, Aaron, please?
I don't think I have any questions for the architect because it's all just schematics at this point. Yeah. So I think we could probably let him go if you guys all agree with that, and then we can discuss.
Okay, thanks, Eric.
Are you there?
Yeah, thanks. So we're going to let you drop off. They're going to continue the deliberation. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, good night.
So if you could email me a copy of that presentation, that would be good because then we can actually read it.
Okay, yeah, and we have the schematic designs available. We could post that last report. We have electronic copies of that, and we could post this online so people could read it as well. And if this is something, right now we do have, we are covering the costs of, while we're in escrow, we have a certain amount that we're paying monthly. So we need to be cognizant that we may or may not be able to extend escrow indefinitely. At this point, we're at the end of what our contract period is for that. So ideally, the council would decide tonight, but if not, then we'd have to go back and ask and consider, if you didn't need more time.
What are you guys thinking?
There Homeland Security or USDA loans or grants or
Talking to USDA, they have loans for community facilities, but not grants. There's certain cities under 10,000. I think there's more grant programs, but we're not under 10,000. So that limits some of the grants that we can get. But right now, what we're being told is loans. Our hope is that we could find another source of maybe lower interest. If we can cut the interest rate down from 3.5 that was projected by our finance director, and looking at those payments, that'd be huge. But right now, we just don't have another source available.
So what are we deciding right now?
Just providing, discussion, providing direction to staff, and I think just recognizing that we have a project that we can't guarantee the affordability of it at this point, particularly not with Measure E. But if, I think the direction that we're looking for specifically is, should we proceed and purchase these parcels, possibly with the idea that we may not be able to complete the project, but purchasing those parcels would allow the city to continue to pursue funding. But again, it's not assured, and taking the risk that we may have to sell the property if we can't complete the project in the future. And I just want to make one thing really clear too. I think the police department did feel some responsibility of the attempt not being successful at 280 12th Street. And so, I just want to point out that, if we did proceed, that it's not our police department that's guiding this process. It's really mostly the funding and financial piece. And so, our police department for that project and for this one, they definitely would welcome a new facility and are supportive of the effort. But again, this is bigger than, just the police department. It's an affordability issue, really, and seeking funds and creative ways to move forward. So should we proceed, with escrow on those parcels and close with the uncertainty of a funding plan moving forward, I think is a real question. And it's a difficult place because typically we make a complete plan, but the future is uncertain with these.
Does anybody from the public want to comment?
Walt Wilson, resident of Fortuna. Looking at those numbers, it looks like if you just go forth with the way things stand right now, Measure E is going to be eaten up by this project. And there's going to be no Measure E funds available for anybody else at all. I just don't think that's what the taxpayers in Fortuna voted for.
Well, we would still be funding all the positions that we're funding. Does that matter? We would still have the Parks and Rec Director, the detectives, the Community Services Officer. All of those positions that are currently funded with Measure E would still be there. Those amounts were taken out before Aaron gave us the bottom number. Isn't that correct, Aaron? Yeah.
That chart that they showed were the 2019-2020 expenditures, and so the revenue would be in the lowest year, the highest liability for the PERS unfunded mandate bill. So that projection was for what our revenue would be in 2031, without the deletion that Mayor Long pointed out of a loss of $200,000 that could come from the ultimate elimination of any payment for the successor agency. So that, again, this year it's projected to be about $600,000 that would be left. 2031 it would be close to nothing with if we lose that 200,000. So again, that PERS unfunded liability is a bell-shaped curve that maxes out 11 years from now.
And then after that maxed, it would start building up again.
Are we now throwing the unfunded pension liability burden into Measure E?
Not directly, but if the unfunded liability makes the general fund deficit higher, then the Measure E funds to balance the budget become higher.
Yeah, but it still looks to me like there's going to be no discretionary funds left.
That's a situation. That could be the situation.
Go back to that chart.
Yeah.
And show that chart again. Because that's, yeah, the discretionary funds is what we're talking, because all the positions are still in there.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to see that again?
Yes.
It might take just a minute. I don't know if you had any other comments.
Yeah, I'm confused, as usual.
It's going to take just a
Mind
minute.
explaining the 200,000 for the, I can't say the word, but the other agency?
So, Aaron,
Thank
you
you.
can help me if I get mixed up, but the cities, when they lost redevelopment, the Department of Finance granted the cities $250,000 for admin fees to take care of all the paperwork and all of the projects that were left as part of the redevelopment, and that amount goes down as you close out parts of it. And so eventually, now, if we had 250 a year, and now we're at 200 a year, and eventually it will just go away because that whole, what do we call it? The bonds, everything that we have to pay off. You can come up here if you want to. Will eventually be decided and closed out, and then that money's gone.
Okay.
And I don't know how many years that'll take. I'm guessing 3, but you might have a better sense.
It could happen, honestly, it could happen any year. We're already kind of at the end of our rope. The Department of Finance, on their last letter sent to the city, said that the county oversight board needs to take a look at it and make sure that it still was deemed appropriate. This year they deemed it appropriate, but the Department of Finance certainly has their eyes on it and want that $200,000 back. So I would expect it to probably start tapering down over the next years until it's next to nothing in 4 or 5 years.
And then I think something that's important to mind that measure the general revenue tax, so it doesn't have a specific use. It's for general fund, but the language and the to what specific. So, it would apply to all the. It really is part of the city's general, and even though we've chosen to segregate it, to try to distinguish and purchase that, it's attributable to anything expenses that go to these general fund.
Right, without accountability portion to the public, and that's why we have it that way.
That's right.
I'm going to go back to my suggestion I did a while back that got voted down. I think we should really try to educate the public on the need of this, go through this program with them, and try to get that tax measure passed at 1%. Because did that, then we could have the money to do, we'd have the money for that, with the no sunset. But there's a lot of education. It would take a lot of hands apart. Out there talking to people too. But if we did that, we could get it done, and we could, be able to do this stuff with the Measure E and have that police department.
I don't think, especially with this coronavirus and business left and right now, if we can tell them that they're doing this already, I think we tell them we're going to increase, we're just dead water. I would love to do what you're saying, but I don't think we can get it, and then we have nothing. I just think that's too big of a risk. 5. Okay, there's our chart.
So, Walt, what you can see here that our finance director described is you can see, this is an increase of our unfunded liability payment. This is a bill essentially sent the city a $10 million bill, and they said you will pay it over this amount of time, and here's what the table looks like. You can't see, but 4 years ago, I think the city was paying less than $200,000, and right now you can't see the actual number, but we're actually paying right now closer to
600,000
closer
annually.
to 6. So this is, say we were paying 600,000 in 1920, that'd be 628, 684. So these bills are going up, and then they're right around $1 million in 2031, 32. So that liability increases to its peak at 2031. And then, with this is Measure E funded positions. So we have revenue for Measure E, which is projected. The deficit number, which again, Mayor Long pointed out, that could be another 150,000 without the 200 now. So you see the remaining funds at the lowest point in the highest liability unfunded. The forcing ones take off 200,000 that the successor agency currently gets from revenue. So if we had a payment of 200 under that, and it would leave 61,000 at our lowest point. So again, this is a big decision and one that we need to make for our community. I think most people would agree that, the police facility we have needs upgraded. We've studied this enough times and we've been able to demonstrate that. I think the biggest question is how do we pay for it as a community? And again, if these are unique sites that want the potential to build that facility on, should we continue at this time? With certainty, sales tax measure, certain potential funds, uncertain that how much we could bring into the common facility and still have the facility that we need. Again, there's a lot of moving parts, and there's really no guarantees. I think the question today is if we, the only direction on now is really from an indication council would want to proceed at this point. And then also, if we buy properties, to kind of keep that and keep doing this with the understanding that we lose potentially if we had to sell the property again. So that's our risk isn't high. Challenge is hard. There's a huge challenge here to funding project. We're committing to a project today. We're committing, or we're asking whether our seed really the completion purchase. So our risk, you're looking at a $605,000 property that, maybe drops 10% or 20%. So I don't think we have a huge risk on purchase of that property, but I think not proceeding really is an indication that we're not going to go about trying to fund this police station or plan this. It takes away our ability to start to plan for a facility. And so that's the tough part is we want to plan, want to be optimistic. Numbers don't look good. May or may not be consistent with Measure E, but the question are we go after the I think from a staff perspective, we really do feel like a newer facility is in need. We're going to need that with a growing department and growing population. It's probably not any cheaper than it is now. We can't afford as it is, but we need to work on alternatives and ways we can with it. So I think buying that property to keep staff, we can make a plan. But right now we don't have, and there will be uncertainties for this year. Some may liabilities, but this is more about direction. Buy the properties potentially, but pushing towards it. Don't have possible on that. We get a new facility and we have to sell a bill like we did before. I think it is, we want to do that. We want to find a way, but it's hard to guarantee.
I think you should try.
Anything else, Walt?
Well, I think we need to keep our eye on the ball for the thing, and thinking of getting Measure E passed in, if we're going to be looking at only $100 and some thousand available somewhere down the road, that's going to be hard to sell.
Have all the positions we can sell because those are still there no matter what happens with
That's true. That's true. Anything else? I don't know. The police, no question about that. I'm glad I'm not sitting up there.
So get your.
I don't envy. This is a tough decision, but I want to throw a little something else in the discussion. We have a great group of officers and staff that are working there currently. We could, with some type of a vision or forecast for some type of facility, we could be looking at an attrition issue the office we currently have. You have to take into account the amount of money that we put, that the city has put training and longevity with the officers that we have, and retaining the valuable asset we have in our officers and staff. So that's just throwing more on the whole thing. I understand that, but there is a significant cost there that goes along with personnel. So I just wanted to throw that in for that considered as well. Again, this is a tough decision, I understand, but the staff is also still hanging from 280 12th Street issue, and they're looking for some direction from the city to secure their position within the city of Fortuna. And and every one of the officers that I've got to know and appreciate over the last couple months are dedicated to the city, that heartily. So again, I'm going a little bit more at you. I understand that, but I think that's something that he said. And thank you for the time.
Anything else? I knew you were going to talk. I was just waiting. You wanted to come up here.
Wouldn't hear no reason.
Mayor, City Council, Senator Perry. In 1972, I came to work as a reserve officer with the Fortuna Police Department. And since then, there's been out maybe 12 to the front of the police department, but I think they had a couple of offices, and that was about it. Other than that, the footprint has been the same over all of these years. I think, as this gentleman pointed out, that there's no question that the city just really needs a larger police department facility. Having said that, you folks really, as has been described, really have a difficult decision here. With the Measure E funds that are really in question as far as being passed, I don't think personally that there would be a problem. I don't know whether increasing the amount of tax that we are currently at is the answer, but that is going to be an issue that we're going to have very prior to 2025. And so if that can be addressed in 2020, November 2020, that would be good. Looking ahead, that would give the city some planning that that can't happen right now, long-term planning. Having that, I really like the facility. I am a resident of Elizabeth Barkus Way. I like the location where the city is at. It's a great location. I think the building there has possibilities. I like the work that's been as far as the architectural. But with the coronavirus issue right now, are the sales tax, are those taxes going to remain the same? Are they going to increase or to decrease? We just don't know at this point. I would caution, and if there's a way to continue the SRO where it's, we can elongate that timeline without moving forward and jumping into a process as we did at the that might be a way to take a look and see where things are going to be. It may be and see what happens.
Answer that one because we've been processed. We've been on for quite a while already.
Yeah, through fair cost of about $1,000 a month for an escrow. And the question is, how long can you extend it? You know, it would like cost more to escrow into those opposed to the property. So, you know, if we got them to extend it, some sort of payment for the city to continue the option, so to speak, and then, you know, that might end up being than what you'd see in a loss if you had to buy the property and sell it.
And there's been appraisal and things. Well, that's my suggestion. It's a tough position to be in for everybody. Is that not right now?
In things I'd say, it's hard to say what we'll up with. Maybe there's some ways to do facing. You have a delivery cost, but maybe there's ways, we don't have it all through, and that's a really difficult thing, but we have to make a decision on these parcels. So that's the tough situation we're in, is we don't have an infinite amount of time to consider this location. We're getting close to the...
I think the location is an excellent building itself. Like I say, has parties. So, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right, we'll close public comment. But is anyone here thinking? Land only. Let's just...
Yeah, land only. Is there, because I couldn't tell from the site plan, is there enough room to do intersection movement at New Ronerville Road and still maintain site plan safely, securely?
There was just
rolling.
There recently a stop sign put in there. It was just a week. I think the city general might have been around, or there's been discussion other things might happen, or turn lane. Property is so key if we ever did want to incorporate it, because right, it's necessary from this property, it wouldn't be necessary to buy the whole thing just for the purpose, but it may have some use for that purpose if we see more traffic. But right now, I'm projecting full build of the McLean campus. This time would be adequate. Did that answer your question?
I just know to run that thing. Or I'm good.
Can you please indulge me? I have to ask questions in order to decide on the land. You already touched on it, but the idea phases, is there, with the addition, an example is bike storage, can't buy a Connex box for $3,500? I mean, it's not going to look as pretty, but it could be a measure of savings that can down the road, and then have a bike once new monies became available. Once we had somebody come in and a new revenue stream was created or something like that. Is there areas that we can phase into this project so that we're not looking at $5.5 million?
I think we wanted to really, we wanted to give you an idea what the full scope of a needed project could be. We could have you to beat this estimate down and then maybe get unrealistic, but then we might have ended up in the same situation as the last time. We worked very hard. I did not want to put an estimate for this project would be unrealistic, because then also would be making decisions based on something that is overly optimistic. So we tried to keep a budget number as much as possible. That said, we haven't got in and we haven't with phasing options. We haven't identified other grants. We haven't identified value budget to, the lower cost project. That's something that would take more time, and that's something that if we did proceed with this as a property, we could continue to explore. Definitely have to include our police department, because they're really sensitive about buying a facility that would be less than what they need, and then have the not seeing it. Sometimes the wanting to build something gets you as far as gets you the minimum facility that you need. There's a way to bring the estimate down. Could you take out the block wall, put in fence like to the other police facilities around here? Yes. Is there, that would save $100,000. There's a lot of ways you could do, but I think that's going to take more time, and to continue, you don't want to continue paying money costs for building, we're not going to close. So I think buying that property, we could keep continuing and bring that down. Or I think if we don't pursue purchase, likely the property owner to carry on and extend escrow, I think they're interested in selling the property quickly. So the question is how to secure this site. But yes, we could find ways to bring the cost down still.
I highly appreciate that you're not selling us something coming with a bunch of chambers. It's very, very important that you present the full scope of all the wants and wishes and needs. So that I greatly, greatly appreciate that you're not, selling something for free and it costs 5.5. We all better. So that I really, really appreciate. I feel like, I guess if we're moving forward, I don't want a little bit more involved in creative thinking. I know that I'm not boots on the ground working in that facility every day, but I'm like, things that I wrote down during the presentation were, is there any way to utilize the pool as the armory or the evidence room? Why do we need those rooms above ground if you're going to put a block wall around them anyway? You know, I mean, so is there ways that we can cost save? And I don't want to micromanage the project, that's not my job, but I also want to see if we can pare down those costs to make it more palatable.
You know, I think certainly we could have more council workshops, probably not at council meetings, but if the council wanted to kind of see what's happening and we do pursue it and acquire the property, we could certainly do more meetings in a workshop setting and try to get input. And, you know, I think it's important, again, to have the police department weighing in on those types of decisions and a qualified professional. So having an architect on board, those kind of things do cost money, but.
Yeah.
Well, and I think architects are architects. Every jog in that building costs you an extra huge amount of money, a lot of them. And then simple, straightening out symbols and a little more creative.
Right.
Every jog costs a lot more.
Maybe there's some value engineering work with building contractors who have done similar quality buildings. How can we bring these costs down? Are these square prices realistic? You know, again, we just to the point where we're at this fee study and we, you know, so we're running out of time on making a decision on the property, but I think we can bring it down, but I just can't promise that without figuring it out.
Yeah. I have questions about the building itself that I think maybe we could change without micromanaging like Jeremy, and just maybe some suggestions, but I can't see it on a little tiny thing up there, so
Yeah.
I would like you to send that to me. But as far as the land, I think that we'll go ahead and purchase.
I agree.
I agree.
Discussions, so it's really long motion to all agree on that.
But I think it's important to put it in context. You know, just to recap, buy land, send off the message that we're going to continue pursuing this project. I think there is relatively low risk. You could see a addition of real estate prices. We could take a loss, but again, we're talking about a $100,000 property. You know, not the morale of our police department, which is right now valuable. I know they want to proceed, and I hope that you can see them engaged as we move forward with this. You know, staff support says it's a very, very difficult budget situation. And we have all the leaders now.
In my mind's eye, I see buying it gives us the opportunity, and worst case scenario, we either choose to sell it to somebody that it's going to suit well, or we rent it to a group that has a desire of that space already. I think that the fact that it never hit the open market and that we had an opportunity to get into there before we really saw what the marketability, market value of the real estate was, is our in the hole. So I think we should act. And then if it turns out that it's easy to, if we want to seek grant funding, or if we want to figure out how to do our bonds or whatever, or finance the project, we have options. But I don't know if you have an option if you don't act on this right now.
I think its location, besides being good for a police department, is also good as a community thing. We're in the, I mean, it's, I don't think we would be hurt much by it at all.
So you have your direction.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on.
You might guess, I think probably in the last 2 weeks, I probably received over 200 emails on the coronavirus, maybe more. So anyway, part of my verbal report, I'll go back to the meeting schedule coming up, but you know, the coronavirus continues to spread. Guidance continues to be issued. We've had guidance from the state. We've had guidance from the Fed. There was a presidential briefing today where they encourage groups not greater than 10 people. As you know, a lot of you may notice, we tried to space the chairs out to get the social distancing. So we're taking those guidelines seriously. You know, and I guess our interpretation really is that they're trying to slow the spread so that they can improve the response and the testing. And so I think all the communities in Humboldt County, we're really seeing them do that, and we're trying to do our part too. We're questioning whether or not we should even have this council meeting, but we had the plans. We were able to get some spacing, and fortunately the attendance allowed for the meeting tonight, but we're going to consider whether or not how we proceed with meetings coming up in the future. One of the things we might be doing is looking at some of the the computer applications that allow people to attend remotely and email in questions. And so some of the other communities are looking to do that. They're going to be trying that this week. So we'll have a good example of whether or not that'll work. So that's going to take a lot of our time. It's also causing a number of employee issues. For example, the county of Humboldt passed a resolution today giving people 80-hour sick time on the books to go home and take care of their kids who all the schools were canceled. How are we going to handle that here in Fortuna? So we're doing a number of things to try to figure that out. We don't have all the answers yet. We have some pretty good ideas. So look for a memo from myself and our human resources director, with what our approach is going to be tomorrow until they change the guidance, and then it'll probably be different the next day. So there's a lot happening there. Even communities in the Bay Area considering a shelter in place and only leaving your house for essential purposes, and really severely restricting travel and movement. And so, as a public agency, I think we have to err on the side of safety. It seems benign here, and there's not a lot of infected cases, but that's the way I think that they want to keep it, and we want to be ahead of it instead of behind it. So the city's going to continue to do our part, and you'll see more memos. Our police chief sent out an email with the police department's approach today, and so we're going to have to continue to monitor and adapt to this at real time. That said, our next regularly scheduled council meeting will be on April 6th, so whether it's going to be live or on the computer, that's to be determined. Our next planning commission is on March 24th. Our next Measure E meeting is tomorrow on March 17th, and so that's something we're going to be talking about. There's potential for canceling that meeting. We haven't decided yet, so we'll have to stay in touch with our chair tomorrow and determine what we do for that meeting. The next Roner Community Recreation and Park District is on April 1st. So with that said, that's all I have for my report.
Okay. Future agenda items? Anything standing out? All right, city council reports. Mike?
Well, a lot of, not much happened in the past, and looking ahead, the Historical Commission meeting has been canceled. The League of California Cities meeting this weekend, or this Friday, has been canceled. The
Chamber mixers?
chamber meetings.
Events at the River Lodge.
A lot of things this has impacted us in ways that probably none of us anticipated. Got an email that a meeting tomorrow night has been canceled. So, don't have anything to report at this time. My family's safe and healthy, and looking forward to staying that way.
Okay. Jeremy?
So my two committees are FBID and Parks and Rec. So FBID's meeting for tomorrow has been canceled as well. So we'll probably postpone that until at least a month from now, and then we'll reassess from that point. Parks and Rec has postponed all adult rec league activities. A couple of the highlights that they gave in their report that we saw through the consent agenda was they just got all the labeling for the new skates that Measure E funded for the roller skates at Roner Park at the Fireman's Pavilion. And because of the beautiful weather we've had at this very mild winter, they've already gotten a head start on some of the ball field cleaning up and getting it prepared for the softball season. So we're anticipating, carrying on as business as usual until further notice on that front. Got the last of the hydration stations installed there at the hardball field number 2, I believe. Yes, and another project funded by Measure E, so thank you for that committee's work again. And then last that I want to just bring up is I was able to attend the Safe and Sober fundraiser dinner for Fortuna High School's 2020 class, and really proud of this community again. I mean, just over and over and over it happens, but the generosity of this community is just outstanding. They raised $29,000 in the live auction. 24 items went for $29,000. It's just an incredible number that just continues to astonish me. And I just can't thank those businesses and those patrons of the and the supporters of those kids enough for really investing, literally investing in our youth of our community. And the best statistic of the night was, since they've started the Safe and Sober fundraiser and graduation party, there's been 0 fatalities from drunk driving as a result. So just appreciate those volunteers stepping up year after year after year. That's all I got.
Okay, well, I've been attending all of the Measure Z Advisory Committee meetings, and I'm very happy to report that Measure Z will be advising to the supervisors to fund our drug task force officer and our school resource officer, full funding for both of those officers. So I was really happy about that. And my committee is the Humboldt Transit Authority Committee. And I talked to Greg today to ask him about how the coronavirus was affecting them. They have a very good sanitizing system for their buses, which are sanitized every day. The buses will continue to run. And I talked to our Parks and Rec advisor, or no, what is he called? Director. And our buses are also being sanitized every single day. Our buses are doing some pretty nice things for our seniors and disabled people. They, instead of picking up the seniors and taking them to the lunch because they can't have more than too many seniors in one area, they're actually picking up the lunches and delivering them to the seniors for just the price of the bus, bus punch. And they are also, will go shopping for the seniors. If they need something at the grocery store, the bus will go get that, take it to them, and just punch their card. So I think that's really nice that our city is stepping up and doing some extras for our senior and disabled people. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you. So all my meetings are canceled. I have like free time that I don't even know what to do with. So yeah, I'm like, this one's canceled, this one's
You said that out loud?
I did.
Yikes.
I think that was an offer to volunteer for our police facility planning.
Remember, nature abhors a vacuum, so if it's empty, it'll get filled up.
Oh, I'm sure. I don't doubt it, but I'm just going to enjoy it for a minute, okay? All right, we do have 2 closed session items tonight. Number 1 is a conference with real property negotiator pursuant to section 54956.8 of the Government Code. The property is 320 Main Street, and the negotiating parties are our city manager, Merritt Perry, for the city of Fortuna, and Debbie Chisholm as negotiating party for the buyer. Negotiation is for the price and terms of payment. Our second one is a conference with real property negotiator pursuant to section 54956.8 of the Government Code, and the property is APN 200-362-005, 106-091-040, 106-091-044, and 106-091-030. Negotiating parties are again our city manager, Merritt Perry, and Troy Land and Trudy Emke as negotiating parties under negotiation of the price and terms of payment. If anyone has any comments on either of these items, now is the time. All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment, and we need a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Motion to adjourn to closed session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming.